It's good to be here with my brother Swizz.
Yes, thank you.
We've known each other forever. So really...
Over 20 years now.
Yes, over 20 years.
It's crazy.
I remember looking at your art collection then, because I probably had like IKEA posters on my wall at home, and then coming in and just seeing, you know, your collection and seeing your work as a painter and everything else. And that was one of the moments where it was like sort of a spark of inspiration for me in terms of interest in the arts. But I don't think I had the right on-ramp at that time.
My entry point was growing up in the Bronx and then always being curious with music and art and realizing that they were brothers and sisters. But I could have went either way at that time, but of course I chose music because it was the most popular. But once I got my foot in the door, my appetite still remained for art. And I remember getting my first place at around like 18 going into 19, and I wanted to have some art hanging on my wall. And I remember going to the galleries and couldn't understand why things were so expensive. I'm like, but how and why? And then I met a couple of amazing gallery owners at that time, David Rogaff, and he just started explaining to me about the difference between artist proofs, trial proofs, and just different mediums. And, you know.
You got lucky though. Like, you know, my experience with galleries was, you know, walking in, people don't speak to you.
Oh, I dealt with that.
Yeah, like it's, you know, so.
I still deal with that, by the way.
I still deal with it too, by the way. I call them out on it, is the difference now.
Yeah.
But it was weird to me where, you know, coming from music is a very inclusive culture, you know, and, you know, it's like music's for everyone. You never meet people who don't like music, you know, so it's like music's for everyone.
Definitely.
And this was a culture where I think my introduction that really sparked it was seeing people's social practices. So where, you know, you saw artists who were doing fine art, but still in the community and doing practices that live within the communities.
Yeah.
It allowed me to be down to earth. You still can have meaningful dialogue with artists, and you know, but it was too many people sitting in the middle of that conversation. So like, I guess as an artist, do you feel just directly connected with artists just because, you know, sort of being mutual creators?
I do, man. I've been like that even with the musicians, as you know, from managing many people I work with. We worked on together. But like as artists, it's like, I don't look at it like acquiring something. I look at it as like a welcome to the family. One thing I'm proud of you is your name coming up in these conversations when it comes to art. It's like, Troy. I'm like, yes, right? Because it could feel like an island by yourself, and it could feel like an island that people only want to show up for the parties. What do you think about African-American artists and collectors having access to those artists?
I remember going to a gallery in LA, and I went to see a show, and I wasn't familiar with the artist at that time, and I asked about a piece, and it was just like walking in Gucci back in the day. But I was personally offended by it. And you know, I'm in sweatpants and like, you know, and sneakers, and I ended up meeting that artist, and me and this artist are very close friends now. And to the like where I talk to this artist probably 3 or 4 days a week. Help this artist strategize on their business outside of art and some acquisitions that they wanted to make. And you see this sort of gap, because I'm like, once I started learning about him, I'm like, this guy we're the same exact age. He grew up in a city that's like the city that I grew up in. We gotta have some shit in common. You know what I'm saying? We had to grow up listening to the same music, watching the same cartoons. You know,
but I don't think he have anything, or the artists have anything to do with that.
Zero.
Right, and which is another problem. I can honestly say I fought for my entire collection. Like it's just now becoming easier buys, but like fought, like I'm talking about like had it out.
When we get into something, especially hip hop culture, is like, we were forced to be entrepreneurs, we were forced to be creative, we were forced to make something out of nothing. So whether we get into the film business, whether we get into the TV business, whether we get into sports, whether we get into alcohol and wines and headphones, all of these different businesses, we bring our culture with us. And so I do think, you know, just the additive of guys like you and some of the other people who have like come into this with meaningful intent, I just think it's gonna welcome other people in, where it feels less intimidating.
I agree with that. My favorite museum is definitely the first museum that I was ever on the board of, the Brooklyn Museum, because Ann Pesenek is a trailblazer, she's a leader, she's a disruptor, and when I met with her, I couldn't refuse it because, you know, there's so many parallel lines of the way she's thinking and the way that, you know, she want to take things to the next level and not just the obvious level. And so Brooklyn Museum is it.